The worst betrayal of my life didn't come from a competitor. It came from my best friend. And what he stole from me wasn't money. It was my future. My name is Ethan Cole. And 2 years ago, I was living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas, building something I truly believed would change my life. A startup, not just any startup. A logistics optimization platform powered by machine learning. It could predict supply chain disruptions before they happened, reduce delivery costs, improve efficiency. It was the kind of idea investors love, the kind of idea that could turn into a multi-million-dollar company. There was just one problem. I didn't have the money to build it properly. So I did what most founders do. I trusted someone. His name was Ryan Walker. We met in college. Same dorm. Same late-night coding sessions. Same dreams about building something big. But there was one difference between us. I built things. Ryan sold things. He was charismatic, confident. The kind of person who could walk into a room full of investors and make them believe anything. For years, we joked about starting a company together. So when I finally had a real idea, he was the first person I called. I showed Ryan everything. The concept, the architecture, the early prototype I had built. Even the predictive algorithm that made the system unique. He was impressed. "Ethan," he said, leaning back in his chair. "This is huge." "I know." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You don't understand. This isn't just a startup idea. This is a company." That night we made a decision. We were going to build it together. 50-50 partners. Just like we had always planned. Or at least, that's what I thought. 2 weeks later, Ryan suggested something. "We need funding," he said. "Agreed." "I have a connection," he continued. "A small VC firm in San Francisco." "That's good." "But they won't invest unless we pitch as a team." That made sense. Investors usually want both technical and business leadership. So we started preparing. Pitch deck, financial projections, market analysis. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. But at the time, I didn't question it. Because when you trust someone, you don't look for problems. We flew to San Francisco for the pitch. It was my first real investor meeting. I was nervous. Ryan wasn't. He looked completely in control. Like he had done this 100 times before. The meeting went well. Really well. The investors were interested. They asked questions. They seemed impressed. Especially with the technology. My technology. After the meeting, one of the investors pulled Ryan aside. They spoke privately for about 10 minutes. When Ryan came back, he was smiling. "What happened?" I asked. "They want to move forward." My heart started racing. "Seriously?" "Yeah, but..." He paused. "They want a slightly different structure." That night in the hotel, Ryan explained everything. "The investors want me as CEO," he said. "That's normal." "And you as CTO. That's also normal." I nodded. "So what's the problem?" Ryan hesitated. "They want majority control." I frowned. "How much?" 60%. "That's high." "I know," he said quickly. "But it's the only way we get funding." I sat there thinking. It didn't feel right. But at the same time, this was the opportunity I had been waiting for. "What about us?" I asked. Ryan smiled. "We'll still be partners. Everything we build together." I wanted to believe him, so I did. 3 weeks later, everything changed. I received an email. From Ryan. Subject line. Update. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not a call, not a meeting, an email. I opened it, and read it once, then twice, then a third time. Because my brain didn't want to accept what it was seeing. "Ethan, after further discussions with investors, We've decided to move forward with a different technical team. We appreciate your early contributions, but the company is heading in a new direction. Ryan. That was it. No explanation. No conversation. No warning. Just gone. Within a week, everything became clear. Ryan had taken my idea, my prototype, my pitch, and built the company without me. New name, new team, but the same product. My product. I tried calling him. No answer. I sent messages. Ignored. Finally, I showed up at his office. He met me in the lobby. Not even inside. "Ethan," he said calmly, "you shouldn't be here. You stole my idea." He sighed. "It's not that simple. It is that simple." "That's not how business works," he replied. "You didn't have the resources to execute." "And you did. I made it happen." I stared at him. "You used me." He didn't deny it. Instead, he said something I'll never forget. "You were never going to build this alone." Over the next few months, I watched from the outside. Ryan's company started growing. They raised funding, hired engineers, got press coverage. Every article described the innovative logistics platform. Every demo looked familiar, because I had built the core of it. Meanwhile, I was back where I started. Small apartment, no funding, no team. Just an idea that no longer belonged to me. One night, after reading another article about Ryan's company, I realized something. He had taken my idea, but he hadn't taken everything. Because ideas aren't the most valuable thing in a startup. Execution is. And I understood the system better than anyone. Better than Ryan. Better than his entire new team. If he thought he could build my idea without me, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Because this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of something much bigger. And 2 years later, I wouldn't just compete with Ryan's company. I would own it. For the first few weeks after Ryan cut me out, I did absolutely nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I was trying to understand what had just happened. When someone you trust betrays you, your brain doesn't process it like a normal problem. It replays everything, every conversation, every decision, every moment where you could have seen it coming, and slowly, painfully, you realize the truth. There were signs. You just chose to ignore them. After about a month, I stopped checking Ryan's company updates, stopped reading articles, stopped watching his success grow. Because the more I looked at it, the more it felt like I had lost something permanent. Instead, I opened my laptop and went back to the one thing he couldn't take from me, my knowledge. I started rebuilding the system, from scratch, not copying the old version, improving it, fixing the weaknesses I hadn't had time to address before, making it faster, smarter, more scalable. If Ryan had version 1.0, I was going to build version 10.0. There was something Ryan never understood about the product. To him it was a pitch, a way to raise money, a business. To me, it was a system, a complex network of logic, predictions, and real-world variables. And systems don't work unless you truly understand them. That difference wouldn't matter at the beginning, but over time, it would become everything. About 6 months later, I heard the first rumor. A former engineer from Ryan's company reached out to me. We had a mutual connection. "Hey," he messaged. "Did you used to work on the core prediction engine at Log-Eye Chain?" Log-Eye Chain. That was the name Ryan had given the company. "Yeah," I replied. "Why?" There was a pause before he answered. "Because something's wrong with it." That was the first time I smiled in months. We met a few days later. He explained everything. The system Ryan's team had built worked well in controlled conditions. Demos, small datasets, predictable environments. But in real-world scenarios, it struggled badly. Predictions were inconsistent, edge cases weren't handled properly, and the biggest issue? The system couldn't scale. As more data flowed in, performance dropped, errors increased, and no one on Ryan's team fully understood why. Because the original architecture had been mine, and the parts they didn't understand were the parts I never got to finish explaining. That night, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt something much more dangerous, focused, because for the first time since the betrayal, I saw a path forward. Ryan had taken my idea, but he hadn't taken the understanding behind it, and now that gap was starting to show. Over the next year, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. No distractions, no shortcuts, just building. I redesigned the prediction engine completely, added adaptive learning layers, improved data handling, created a system that didn't just predict problems, it learned from them. By the end of that year, what I had built wasn't just better than LogIChain. It was in a different league. But building a better product isn't enough. People need to know about it. So I did something Ryan never expected. I stayed quiet. No big launch, no press coverage, no hype. Instead, I reached out to a few mid-sized logistics companies, offered them something simple. Let me prove it works. No contracts, no long-term commitments, just results. And within 3 months, the results spoke for themselves. Reduced delays, lower costs, better predictions. Word started spreading, slowly at first, then faster. Ryan's company was growing. On the surface, everything looked perfect. More funding, more employees, bigger clients. But underneath, the cracks were getting bigger. Clients started noticing inconsistencies, predictions failing in high-pressure situations, delays that weren't supposed to happen. Ryan's team kept patching the system, fixing symptoms, but not the root cause, because they didn't understand the root cause. About 1.5 years after the betrayal, something important happened. One of LogIChain's mid-sized clients left, quietly. No big announcement. They just didn't renew their contract. That client came to me. Not because of marketing, not because of reputation, but because someone told them, if you want the system to actually work, talk to Ethan. That was the moment everything started changing. More clients reached out. More companies wanted demos. More businesses were willing to test something new. And every time they did, they saw the difference, not just in performance, but in understanding. Because when they asked questions, I had answers, real answers, not presentations. Back at LogIChain, things were getting tense. Investors started asking questions. Why were some clients leaving? Why were results inconsistent? Why wasn't the system improving fast enough? Ryan did what he always did. He sold confidence, told them everything was under control, promised upgrades, promised fixes, promised growth, but promises only work for so long. Eventually, people want results. 2 years after Ryan sent that email, our companies crossed paths again. Not directly, but through the market. Same industry, same clients, same problem we were trying to solve. The difference? I had the better solution. And slowly, everyone was starting to realize it. One night, I got an email from an investment firm. They were interested in my company, wanted to discuss funding. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was this. They were also investors in LogIChain, Ryan's company. And they were concerned, very concerned. Because when investors start looking for alternatives, it usually means one thing. They're preparing for something big. And that's when I realized This wasn't just going to be a comeback. This was going to be something else, something Ryan would never see coming, because the same investors who helped him build his company were about to help me take it away. The email from the investment firm didn't look unusual at first. Just another meeting request, another discussion about funding. But when I read the last line again, something felt different. We'd like to discuss a strategic opportunity involving both your company and LogiChain. Ryan's company. That's when I knew this wasn't just about investment. This was about leverage. The meeting was set in a glass-walled office in downtown San Francisco. 3 partners from the investment firm were already there when I arrived. After a few minutes of small talk, they got straight to the point. "We'll be direct," one of them said. "LogiChain is underperforming." I stayed quiet. "Technically, strong concept," another partner added, "but execution issues." I almost smiled. They continued. "Client retention is dropping, performance inconsistencies, scaling problems." Everything I already knew. But hearing investors say it out loud, that meant the situation was serious. Then came the real question. "If you had the resources, could you fix it?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Over the next hour, the conversation shifted. This wasn't about funding my company anymore. This was about something much bigger. LogiChain had raised multiple rounds of investment. But because of its recent performance issues, its valuation had dropped significantly. The investors were losing confidence. And when investors lose confidence, they look for control. "We're considering restructuring," one of them said. "Leadership changes, technical overhaul." I understood immediately. "You want me to take over the system?" They exchanged glances. "Not just the system." That's when everything clicked. They didn't just want help fixing the product. They wanted to replace the person running it. Ryan. A week later, they made it official. A joint deal. They would invest heavily in my company. In return, we would acquire LogiChain. Not completely at first, but enough to take control. Board seats, decision-making power, and most importantly, authority over leadership changes. In simple terms, Ryan's company was about to become mine. The same investors who once believed in Ryan's vision now believed in mine. The same system he had taken from me was the reason they were losing money. And the same person he removed from his company was now the only person who could save it. There's a certain kind of irony in that, the kind you don't appreciate in the moment. But later, it feels almost perfect. The deal moved fast, faster than I expected. Within 2 months, everything was in place. My company merged with LogiChain. The announcement was framed carefully. Strategic partnership, technology integration, leadership alignment. But behind those words, the reality was simple. Control had shifted, and Ryan no longer had it. I saw him again for the first time in almost 2 years. Same building, same kind of office. But this time, everything was different. He walked into the conference room and froze for a second when he saw me sitting there, across the table, next to the investors. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of the board members broke the silence. "Ryan, please take a seat." He sat down slowly. His eyes never left me. "What's going on?" he asked. The lead investor leaned forward. "As you know, the company has been facing performance challenges." Ryan nodded carefully. "We're addressing them. We believe a leadership change is necessary." Silence. Then Ryan looked directly at me, and in that moment, he understood. The investor continued. "Effective immediately, we are restructuring the executive team." He paused. "Ethan Cole, will be taking over as CEO. The room felt completely still. Ryan didn't react at first. Then he laughed slightly. "You're serious?" No one smiled. No one responded, because it wasn't a joke. After the meeting ended, Ryan asked to speak with me privately. We stood in the same hallway where we used to celebrate small wins years ago. Now it felt different. "You planned this?" he said. I shook my head. "No." "You built this," I replied. "And it collapsed." He clenched his jaw. "You think you won?" I looked at him for a moment. This was never about winning. "Then what was it about?" I answered honestly. "Fixing what you broke." A week later, it was official. Ryan Walker was no longer part of LogiChain. No dramatic announcement, no public fallout. Just a quiet removal, the same way he had removed me, through a simple message. Short, professional, final. A month after the transition, I sat in the CEO office, the same position Ryan once held, looking at the same dashboards, the same system. But now, it worked, properly, efficiently, the way it was always supposed to, because this time, the person running it actually understood it. People always think revenge is loud, dramatic, explosive. But the most powerful kind of revenge is quiet. It's building something better, becoming something stronger, and waiting until the moment when everything comes full circle. Ryan thought he had taken my future. What he actually did was give me the motivation to build something even bigger. And in the end, he didn't just lose the company, he lost it to me.